Hello, my name is Gerald, and I appreciate you showing up for my first discussion where I'll share my philosophy of what it takes in order to make sure we are financially safe no matter what happens in our personal lives, to our economy, and politically. Whether it be a pandemic, loss of our job, or unexpected illness, if we take on a certain mindset before disaster strikes, we can be prepared and financially stable. First of all, I want to say I am by no means a rich man. I have an entry-level job with an insurance company, but I've been able to live without want and save a good portion of my income because of the way I think about money, consumption, and the best way to live. The videos on this channel are going to be extremely personal, with me always talking directly to you, with no excessive editing, no tricks, manipulation, or false information. I'll never ask you to sign up for something. I'll never ask you to participate in a program, to invest in my business. Never do any of that. I'm going to have respect for you, and I hope you have respect for me too, by not asking me to do things like that. Really, it's all about how I live. And while you should not live like I live because you're your own person, there are things that you can take away from what I say in order to protect you against financial ruin. So pretty much just take away what you believe would mix in well with your life. Don't change who you are to fit who I am. It's just you have to be your own person. Is true, and there's certain things that I'll say that you don't agree with, I'm sure, but the things you do agree with, maybe you can take that and apply it to your own life. So really, it's not a glamorous life, but as you're an American and make a decent amount of money, you likely want for little. Even if you don't make a whole lot of money, just by living in a certain way, you can live a very good life, and it'll seem like you make a lot more than you do. What it really comes down to is you aren't too big to fail. You aren't an airline company. You aren't Chevron. You aren't a large bank. So you can't rely on the government to save you. They don't really care about you. You know, if something happens to 5 million people, yeah, they're going to do something about it. And if you're one of those 5 million people and they bail you out, that's awesome. Well, then all that savings that you have there waiting for a catastrophe, you don't have to use it. You get to keep it there. And this time the government bailed you out. But they might not bail you out next time. If next time you're only a part of a group of 100,000 people that are really struggling because of some horrific event, like a hurricane or like a factory closing where you lose your job and there's not a factory nearby where you can get a new job, the government's not going to bail you out. They're not going to care about you. Some of you might have already experienced this. A catastrophic event that was not your fault, but your finances are in ruins because of it. So this is what I'm saying. This is my philosophy, is how do I put myself in the best position for when something like this happens? And I think I have it pretty figured out. Like, honestly, don't rely on the government to save you. They don't care about you. Put yourself in a financial position where you can bail yourself out. Like, be your own bank. A bank that will lend you money on certain terms that you must pay back. It's pretty much a savings account. But the problem is that most people think about their savings account in the wrong way. They think about it in the way of, okay, I'm going to save $100 a month, and at the end of the year, I'm going to buy that badass canoe or kayak or new snowboard or whatever it is. And so that's what they're using their bank account for, to save for big purchases that they don't necessarily need. Sure, yeah, buy yourself those things. Buy yourself a nice mountain bike. Do stuff like that. But before you do that, make sure that you're putting enough in savings where you will be okay if something catastrophic happens to you. Like that should be your first goal. And once you achieve that goal and you have enough in savings where you're not at risk, that's when you can start making those big purchases that are for leisure or just enjoyment, or that really cool car that you've wanted since you were a kid. But certainly don't start off by buying things like that. Any money that comes out of your bank account when you're lending it to yourself because something catastrophic happens, you should think of it as a loan made to yourself by yourself. If things go bad, be in a position where you can save yourself. Don't rely on the government to save you, because they simply will not do it. You are not too big to fail. So let's talk about how my savings account loans me money. So I have certain terms. These terms aren't necessarily going to work for you. You have to come up with your own terms. So my terms are generally, if I take an amount of money out of my savings account, let's say my car broke down, I had to get a new transmission, God forbid. which is funny because my transmission has been acting up. But let's say that happens to me and I don't have the money in my checking account to pay for rent that month. I loan myself money. I give myself a loan from my savings account. What are the terms? The terms are, no matter what amount of money, for me, this is just what I do. For me, it doesn't matter what the amount is, it's a $10 flat rate. So if I borrowed $500 for myself from my savings account, I pay myself back $510. So I'm putting $510 back into my savings account. And I do this on the next paycheck. If I'm unable to do it on the next paycheck, well, that's another $10. So now I owe myself $520. And so that's what I have to pay myself back on the paycheck after that. And so oftentimes I'll have to make a small repayments to my savings account. So if it was a $500 expense, which I know transmission is a lot more than $500, but let's say it's a $500 expense. Maybe on the next paycheck, I'll pay myself $260 back. So that's 10% of the interest or the increase, and then half of what I owe myself to my savings account. And then on the pay period after that, I'll give another $260, and then bam, paid back. We're on an even playing field again, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But you truly have to think about it like it's a loan to yourself. You can't just think that, oh, it's okay, I'll take it out. I've been on my saving schedule. I've been doing very well. I've been saving the percentage of my income that I want to save every single month. I've been doing well. So what does it matter? I pull $500 out. It's okay. In blah, blah, blah time, it'll be back in there and I'll be at all-time highs for my savings account. Don't think about it like that. Think about it like you actually owe a bank this amount of money. Because if you stick to that, then your savings account will just look amazing over time. Whereas if you just willy-nilly take money out when you need it and never put it back in there, you're never going to get to that level of substantial savings where you feel truly safe no matter what happens. But the question is how do you build this savings account from which you loan yourself money? How do you get enough money in there where you are secure enough where if you had to borrow out of it for rent, that you have enough money in there? Because of course, if you only put $5 in there, it's not going to go very far. So pretty much I'll spend the rest of this series explaining how you get to the point where your savings account is large enough to create stability when things go wrong, when you experience a catastrophic event. Even if you're currently struggling to pay your bills right now and it feels impossible to build any kind of savings, I'm confident that adopting my mindset, or parts of my mindset at least, parts that merge well with your own mindset, will allow you to do so, will allow you to build this savings account. So if you agree that the government won't bail you out, click that like button. Do it. Click it. If you think that they will, and that's their job to bail you out, click that dislike button. Which belief is more commonly held? Let's see. It'll be interesting. Feel free to comment your thoughts on the subject, and I will address them at the end of my next video. See you next week, and thank you so much for showing up today.